News just out. Keenly watched May data showing better than expected jobs growth in the U.S. Non-farm payrolls rose 390,000 last month as companies kept hiring. That beats Bloomberg's forecast of a gain of 320,000. Still, it's the first time that the payrolls failed to rise by more than 400,000. Unemployment was 3.6%, unchanged from April and slightly missing Bloomberg's forecast of 3.5%. Well, Stephen Blitz, Chief US Economist at TS Lombard, joins us now. Well, Stephen, a hiring spree continues in the U.S., although it has tapered off somewhat from the 12 consecutive months of payroll growth exceeding 400,000. At the same time, Elon Musk says he's got a super bad feeling about the economy. What does jobs growth look like in the months ahead?
Well, at some point, it's going to slow down here, right? I mean, if you go back to pre-COVID days, we had 3.5, 3.8 type of unemployment rates. And if we got 150,000 job gain in a given month, that was considered a great job number. So, this idea that we're going to stay with 350,000 a month is silly. Now, it also tells you that perhaps the labor market isn't quite as tight as people say, because, you keep pulling people off the sidelines. And there doesn't seem to be a particular shortage. It may be hard to get them. You may have to pay them money to get there. That's fine, fine for them. But I don't see this this continuing for much longer. And to Musk's comment, so of course the economy is going to slow. I mean, the issue is not whether it's going to slow. It's going to slow the trend. The economy can't keep growing 6%, and all these things can't keep going on. But slow to what? And that's really the question.
Yeah, and so what does this mean for the economy then, and how the Fed should tinker with its pace of monetary tightening?
Well, the Fed is assuming that the economy is going to slow, right? Because the only way it can justify at these levels of inflation saying that 2 to 3% is a neutral federal funds rate is presumption that the economy slows and inflation follows with it. So in effect, it comes down to meet their targets, and then suddenly their numbers look, reasonable. So that's what the Fed thinks. I disagree. I think the economy is going to slow from here, but inflation's going to stay high, and at some point later in the year, the Fed's going to have to ramp up its pace of tightening and eventually get the funds rate over 4% sometime next year. But in the meantime, the economy is going to slow. It's mixed signals. Certainly, this was still a great jobs number. Anytime you can put 300,000 people back to work, it's a great jobs number. And it supports spending, because when you're employed, you spend more than you're unemployed. I don't care who you are. So these are all good signs for the economy. But yes, at some point, this pace begins to fade. But that doesn't mean recession. It just means you're just moving back to trend. And the Fed thinks it's going to decelerate a lot. Otherwise, it would have a higher funds rate in its sights than 2-3%.
And Stephen, very quickly, what do you think this would mean for Asia then?
Well, I think it's good news for Asia, right? I mean, we are a net buyer of what Asia sells generally, and the difference between the 70s and today is in the 70s only about 10% of U.S. consumer goods were imported, and now it's probably something like 70-80%. So when you get, and a lot of that obviously comes from Asia, so when you have a sustained strong consumer, that means you're going to have sustained orders from the U.S. To fill inventory, to fill shelves. So it's a good problem to have for the world, and so that you have slowing China, you have slowing Europe, but because the U.S. isn't really slowing or not shrinking, certainly, then since we're a net buyer from whatever the world sells, we are helping to keep the world growing.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with us, Stephen Blitz, the Chief U.S. Economist at TS Lombard.